Hi, I'm Terry Moore, and this is one of our videos in our series on the unified path. The unified path is our perspective that all spiritual paths need to address all of our parts, and we say those are body, mind, heart, and soul, and each of these parts plays a critical component in making ourselves whole and bringing ourselves entirely to the journey of our own journey to knowing ourselves and knowing the One. So one of those parts is the body, which is a critical component of life and of the spiritual path, and it's not something that one would want to leave behind, even though one might focus on, say, the mind or some other activity in this process. But the body is important, and it does have a role to play, and it does, in fact, really help us in the whole notion of knowing ourselves. So let's look at that for a moment. You've heard me say this in our other videos, that the body is important, and we've talked about ways in which one can use the body and use rituals to help the body integrate us into our path. But I haven't talked much about my experience with my body, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to do that. Excuse me. There are three things that come to mind when I think about my relationship with my body and its place in my growth, my understanding, and my spiritual life. The first one of these is the martial arts, which is something I would recommend to everybody. I was a martial artist for more than 25 years, practicing the art of Hapkido, which is a Korean form. And eventually I got to be a 5th degree black belt. And I think about my times in the martial arts as really enjoyable and something that was a pleasure to do. But more than that, there were moments, and I'm thinking of moments in kata where one is going through very complicated ritual activities that were really transcendent, that put me in touch with something that was well beyond anything that I had experienced before. It was a touch of magic. It was an opening that occurred during this process. And again, this was a physical process. So there are many moments in the martial arts that I think can offer that kind of insight if one is open to it. And let me add, just as an aside, that one of the reasons I recommend the martial arts is there have been 5 times in my life when my knowledge of the martial arts has kept me from being seriously injured. All of those times have been when I've fallen. Because if there's anything you learn in the martial arts, it's how to fall. And knowing how to fall has been, as I said, in 5 occasions, critical in my not being really hurt. This is even more important as one grows older. And of course, in the martial arts, not only do you learn how to fall, but you also really work on developing balance skills. So I recommend that to anyone. But back to our proposition of how the body fits into the mystical journey, there are those moments in the martial arts when things do open up for one, when you can see why it is that the saints and sages of the East often had that as a component of their own teaching and of their own backgrounds. So think about the martial arts as something that might be a component to your own path. Another thing that comes to my mind in terms of things I do with my body is driving. I've always enjoyed driving. There's something about moving through space or feeling the difference in the acceleration or braking or moving around corners that was somehow very, very special to me. And it's something that I've always enjoyed and I've tried to be good at and I've taken some training at. And that's more or less good and I've enjoyed it. But about 6 years ago, my spiritual teacher said to me, I want you to do something that puts you in touch with joy, and to do it regularly, to make an activity that brings you joy a part of your life, a scheduled activity for you to do every day or every week, something that brings you joy. And so I thought about that and really thought about a lot of the things I enjoy doing, didn't really focus on one of them, and I asked my teacher, well, what do you think? And he said to me, buy a driver's car. You enjoy driving. Buy a driver's car, drive it regularly, and while you're driving, be as present as you can to the experience that you know is joyful, and get as much out of it as you can. That turned out to be very, very good advice, and I have spent some time regularly, and again as a regular part of my schedule, driving my driver's car, which turns out to be a Porsche 911, around the hills and dales near my home. Not just a good time, but it does offer those moments of special being part of something greater. All right, that's martial arts and driving. The third thing I'd add to my list of experiences is ritual dancing, and I note ritual dancing here in the context of Sufi dancing, because my experience with Sufism goes back more than 40 years, and there are ritual dances that occur that one does regularly that are simply part of a ritual activity, but in fact have the symbolism and the activity that allows you to actually lose yourself in acknowledgement of the greater, of the one, of standing before that which is all and perfect. And that activity also was regular, and was a bodily activity, and was a critical component to my spiritual development, which I wouldn't trade for anything. So there are 3 examples: the ritual Sufi dancing, driving and the joy of driving, and the martial arts and the joy of that movement too. So those are just 3 examples from my own experience of things that that turned out to be, in retrospect, a valuable component of my spiritual life, and that helped me along the path. The question now is, what are those things in your life, or that you might do in terms of your use of your body, that would help open you up, that would make you a more complete traveler on this path? And again, let me repeat, the objective here is the unified path and bringing all of ourselves into play, because all of ourselves, every part of ourselves, is an important part and needs to be incorporated into this journey.